a condo townhouse type. It's like, I guess for like, you know, people who like stay long, like long extended stays.
Yeah, right.
So like they have all their stuff and everything like that, which is like cool. And everybody has like their own, like my siblings have their own like suite, my parents have their own, but they're like down the hall.
How many are down? How many live there? How many siblings are at home?
I have my mom, my dad, and then my 2 siblings moved back from Sacramento. They moved back.
So, and your little brother.
I have my mom, my dad, my little brother. And then I have 2 younger sisters, one who's
Oh,
starting college,
geez.
one who's in 10th grade,
Wow.
and then my 2 other sisters from Sacramento.
Oh my gosh.
But one of them, she's in grad school like me at Northridge, so I think in January she has to move over there because she's teaching.
Okay.
But I'm like, yeah, that's... And my parents are like, they said that they're almost going to be done. And I could tell, like, they're like, oh, like, we just want to go back home, you know?
Oh, my God. I'm sorry.
So they're like...
I had no idea.
Yeah, I mean, I really didn't know.
You just don't talk about stuff like that.
Well, I didn't really know the setup, like, because I don't really go down there often.
Yeah.
So, like, when I was down there, we were at the house and then we went. But they were telling my parents they were going to be done in the next
Oh my
month.
God, oh my God.
And so it's been like push back.
And your mom's dealing with cancer through all this too.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. I'm sorry.
I mean, she's good. My mom is more level-headed than I am when it comes to these type of things. She's like the person, she's very calm. Like me and her are very opposite. Like I'll panic. My mom, she's very like calm. So she's good now, but I'm like, hopefully by at least November, like hopefully you guys, because I'm like,
Thanksgiving, right?
It'll be
you guys celebrate Thanksgiving?
Yes.
It's my favorite. That's
and
my
usually
favorite
that's mine too. And usually it's always at our house.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh my God.
Well, let me get this Aubrey who's teaching should come on any minute.
Okay.
And then I'll come back because I want to hear how that call went yesterday that you were on too.
Oh,
you were on there for a while.
Yeah, they start late though. That was the thing. We were supposed to start at 1. We didn't start till like almost 1:15, 1:30.
You're just sitting on Zoom waiting for them?
Yeah, you know how you had the little screen? It was like waiting for hosts to start.
Jeez.
So like
I
like to be, yeah. Sometimes and then I was like, well, are we still having it? I looked and we did, but super cool. There's like a lot of people.
We're totally being recorded right now. Aubrey. Oh, there she is. There you are. I was just calling you. I'm like, where's Aubrey? You're on mute.
I'm here. I needed to be let in. I just recalled, sorry.
Oh yeah, no, I just hung up. How are you? You doing okay?
Yeah, it's actually clearer today.
Yeah, I know. Once I got to the summit, I was like, wow. I mean, when I was driving on 1, towards 17 this morning, I wish I wasn't going to take a picture while I was driving, but it's brown. It's just, and then I got through Scotts Valley and I got up to the summit. And then once I got to the summit, it was clear. And I'm in San Jose now. Of course, it's not that bad. It smells like smoke over here, but I definitely had more ash on my car this morning than I did yesterday morning.
Yeah.
And thank you. I'm glad you're safe. And I know that we've got, we're starting to hear about some of the devastation in Santa Cruz right now. And so like Mary Phyllis, my teammate, Mary, her in-laws own a Christmas tree farm up on Empire Grade above UCSC, that Bonnie Doon area.
Aww.
The whole thing. I mean, I'm not sure how much my daughter's fiance's grandfather's house in Bonnie Doon burned down yesterday, and I'm not sure. I'm waiting to hear more reports about Bonnie Doon because I'm not sure if there's anything standing anymore. So Anyway, I'm glad where you're at, everything's okay. And just keep
Yeah.
praying. So thank you very much for teaching today.
My
So I'll let you know. Oh, I got to make you a co-host. Let me do that really quick. And then you'll be able to share your screen. And you have everything pulled up, Aubrey?
Yep.
Okay, well, these guys have been great. This Ignite group, they are very talkative, they interact, it's been awesome. So you guys should have a great class. And I actually have a meeting at 9:30, and so I may not be able to end with you, so you're able to end it without me.
Okay.
I usually try to pop back in and end, but today I probably am not going to be able to do that. And then I'll put a couple of things in the chat while we're going, but otherwise I'm going to hide myself and let you take it over. Okay? All right. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Laura.
Please introduce yourself, okay?
Will do.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, hi everybody. My name's Aubrey Vina. I'm an agent with the Keller Williams Silicon Valley office in Campbell. I've been an agent for about 3.5 years. So relatively new, but have had pretty good success so far. And of course, just absolutely love real estate. So they asked if I could teach this class on listings, and conveniently I have a listing right now. So I am knee deep in it. So I can definitely speak to it, especially during this new reality that we have of COVID, which of course has changed everything. So a lot of the materials that we'll go over obviously are geared towards in-person listing presentations, which isn't really as feasible. It's actually not allowed right now. So we'll kind of adapt as best we can, and it's going to go faster, I think, than it would be if we were doing in-person class, because there's less activity for us to do. Usually we do breakout groups and that type of thing, but since we're virtual, we're just going to kind of go through the material. So feel free to ask questions as we go, but otherwise, let me share my screen. Are you guys seeing the full thing?
Yeah, we can see it.
Now, do you see the next slide and the slides down below, or just this main Ignite skills part? Just the main one? Perfect. Okay. You never know with technology. All right. So again, we're talking about listings today. So how to get a listing, how to prepare for a listing, and really how to secure it, how to get them to sign. Who here has had a listing or been a part or joined maybe a mentor during a listing presentation before? Anyone? Nope. Okay. That's all right. That's what we're here for. Okay. So what we're going to talk about, like I said, is how to prepare the listing presentation and really kind of how to obtain those listings. So I know you guys are doing a ton of work during this program on making phone calls and establishing your database and really securing these appointments. I know in the beginning as new agents, a lot of us work primarily with buyers, and that's great experience. But what do you think happens to those buyers? They turn into listers. At some point, they're ready to sell their house. So if you maintain those relationships and you've helped them by, a few years into your career, that's when you start to see turnover. People who have purchased in the past are now ready to move up. So this is a great opportunity to create a great first impression with those buyers and then eventually convert them into sellers. But you can also obtain sellers through the traditional means of networking, talking to your sphere of influence, farming. Normally I'd say door knocking, but right now that's not allowed. But you never know. You can always get a person who's willing and able and interested in selling their house before you've worked with them as a buyer. But just keep in mind that your buyer clients eventually turn into listing appointments. Okay.
How long does it take? What's the data regarding, the period from buying to selling the same home?
So typically it's like 7 to 9 years for turnover, but in the Bay Area, it's much faster. And that's just given our, sort of our climate of work and how people shift jobs. And we have a lot of transplants and people are going to other parts of the US. And right now, I'm sure all of you are experiencing this or seeing this, but there's a lot of fleeing of California, a lot of it due to high housing prices. So folks who do own and are ready to try a different state, this is a great time to pick up some new clients that might be considering buying or have been sitting on the fence and thinking about buying and are now ready to do it. So this is really, you know, an opportune time to go after those listings.
Mhm.
Okay, so the most important thing is figuring out what sellers want. So, you know, looking at your conversations that you're having with your existing clients, figuring out what those buzzwords are for people who are interested in selling or potentially leaving California, like we talked about. So you want to be prepared before you start to have these discussions and conversations and meetings. But I would say don't over stress how prepared you are. This whole program, Ignite, is really about creating the foundation for you. And the more you practice these scripts and the more you go through the listing presentation, the more those bullet points of conversation stick in your mind and you kind of know how to speak to the material. So when you find yourself naturally in a conversation with somebody who's considering selling their house, you know what to bring up. And most of the time, it's just about asking questions. You're asking these sellers what their motivation is, why they've considered selling, what about now, and you're just getting more information from them. So before the appointment, you're going to go over something called a pre-listing packet, and that's information that you can provide them before you actually meet to discuss selling their house. And then when you meet with them, then you actually go over the listing presentation. So there's sort of two pieces of material content, if you will, that you can share with these sellers. So let's talk about how sellers find their agent. This is data straight from NAR, so National Association of Realtors. As you'll note, the largest chunk of this pie here is 39%. They're referred to us by a friend, neighbor, or relative. So referrals are a big part of our business. Who here is familiar with that concept? Yep. So even if you don't have an existing database that's really large or a ton of clients, you've got friends and family, right? Or coworkers from a previous employer, or community groups that you're a part of, or just your social media network. You have people who know, like, and trust you, and they might have a friend or family member that needs to sell their house. So even if you don't have these people in your database to begin with, you've got your friends to reach out to. So a referral is going to be probably one of the first places you get business from. The next biggest chunk is 27%, and that's used an agent previously. So again, talking about buyers. If you've worked with buyers, at some point, those folks are ready to move on to hopefully a bigger house, or like I said, maybe out of the area. So those people are your previous client. They've already worked with you. So a big chunk of who your sellers might be are from folks you've worked with already. 22% is other. So, I mean, that's just all kinds of random places. Social media could be a big one, or you know, you're in line at the grocery store and someone's talking about needing to move and sell, and you say, hey, did you know? Let me introduce myself. I'm a real estate agent. I work in this area. Let's talk. And you give them your card. So other could be other places where you might obtain a new client. Otherwise, internet, that's not as big of a one as you'd think. It's only 4%. So using your KW website, not as many people are going to be landing on our websites because there's so many websites out there. And in order to get a ton of traffic to your website, you have to pay a lot of attention to drive that traffic and potentially even money. But you never know. Having that website presence is still important, because when people are looking to validate your authenticity as a realtor, if you have some online presence, then it's just a little check mark for them to say, okay, this person really does know what they're talking about. And then the smallest one, which I think is surprising, should be a little bit bigger, is open houses. So before COVID, obviously, we were able to do open houses, and I actually have picked up a lot of business from open houses. I'd say that's still one of our strongest resources. So eventually, if we get to go back to doing open houses, I'd encourage you, because one, you can pick up buyer clients that, like I said, turn into sellers, but also you might be interacting with neighbors in the neighborhood. If you're hosting an open house for somebody else and a neighbor comes by, which they always do, then you can kind of pick their brain and see if maybe they've been considering moving or selling their house as well. Okay. So how sellers found their agent, and now what sellers want. So what do you guys think sellers want? Feel free to chime in here.
They want somebody that
A
they
larger
can
house.
to look for the best buyer for their place, because sometimes sellers hold their place even though they are selling it as a precious part of their life. So they want a buyer that is going to be qualified to take care of it.
Great. What else? Any other ideas? So we're professionals, right? We're realtors. Our job is to serve as a guide for our clients, whether they're buying or selling a house. We're there to walk them through it. So when sellers are looking to select a realtor, they want somebody that's not only friendly and likable, but they also want someone who's going to achieve their goals, be competent at what they do, and really help them. They have an idea of what's great about their house. They have an idea of what the house should sell for based on the neighbor down the street, but they don't know the ins and outs, the legal requirements, or really the processes that it takes. They have kind of a general idea. So they're looking for a professional who will, as you can see from this chart, help them market the home. That's a big one, 21%. So everybody knows about Redfin, Zillow, Realtor, etc. That's where people go to look for houses that are for sale. But how do the houses get there? Sellers don't really know. They think that they have to log into each of those platforms separately. And they don't realize that there's this whole back-end system called the MLS that we have access to as agents. So explaining even just the basics of how a house comes onto the market and how it actually gets funneled into those platforms makes you stand out as a professional and very knowledgeable. 19% people need help with pricing. So pricing is a big deal. And let me tell you, that's going to be your biggest point of, not necessarily contention, although sometimes it can be contention, but that's going to be your biggest challenge when you're working with sellers, is coming up with the right price that they feel their house is worth and that you know the market will bear. And that is always a challenge, because what do you think sellers think about their house in terms of price? They think that their house is worth the most. They think that their house is the best on the block. Yeah, that house down the road sold for, 1 million, but we did all of this to our house, and so our house should be worth 2 million. And it's like, we have an inflated sense of our own property, understandably, but your job as a realtor is to help guide the seller to acknowledge what the price of their house is in the eyes of a buyer. Because as much as they want to sell their house for top dollar, it's what somebody's willing to pay at the end of the day. So pricing is a big component of what we do to help. Fixing up the house, that can be something that needs to get done depending on A, the seller's motivation, and B, how involved do you want to be. So there are agents out there who really take a lead on helping fix up a house or contacting contractors or other service providers to make repairs. Sometimes they even pay for it, and then they settle up through escrow. As a new agent, I would recommend against that. It's a slippery slope. It's challenging if you haven't done it before, if you're not experienced when it comes to fixing or flipping houses. I would say if there are things that need to be improved on the house, you talk to the seller and see what their motivation is, how eager they are to tackle those projects and pay for them themselves. If you can point out that it would be a benefit to improving the overall value and perception of the house, then maybe they're motivated to do it. If not, houses get sold as is all of the time. Helping find a buyer, that's another big piece. Like you were mentioning, finding a really good buyer and somebody who's committed to the house and that's going to stick through the transaction is a big piece of what we do. And so explaining to the seller here's how we vet buyers. Here's how I will ensure that the people who are submitting an offer are the right one for your house. So having those conversations reassures them that you're a professional, that you're experienced, and that they really do need you in order to sell their house. Because again, they have ideas of how this should all work, but you're showing them and illustrating them through these conversations and through the pre-listing packet and the listing presentation that you've got the knowledge and the know-how and the channels to make this happen for them. All right, so the process to listing. So you can see here we've got pre-listing questionnaire, listing appointment, pre-listing packet, listing presentation, and then the walkthrough. So there are different steps to leading up to obtaining a listing. And what's the first thing? A conversation. Whether you talk to them at an open house and they were a neighbor who stopped by, they're somebody from your sphere of influence, they're a referral from a family friend. Initially, you're going to have a conversation with them. And especially right now during COVID, it's going to be on the phone, right? So you're going to have a conversation with them and kind of get as much info as you can about where they are in the process. Are they thinking about moving now? Are they thinking about moving 6 months from now? Are they thinking about moving a year from now? Where are they and sort of what are they thinking? And I'm sure you guys have gone over this before with Ignite, but who remembers or can tell me what an A, B, and C seller is? Ringing any bells for anyone?
Is A ready to buy or sell? B is maybe like, was it up to 3 months or something? And C is like you put them on a drip campaign?
Exactly, you got it. So it's like hot, warm, you know, kind of cold, but warming up. A, B, C. A is somebody who's super motivated and ready to sell like in the next couple of weeks to a month. B is somebody who might be a couple months out, few months out. C is, 6 months or longer. And you can create categories however you would like to approach it. So if you feel like, you know, an A person is somebody really who's now up until the next 3 months or 6 months, that's up to you. But basically you're categorizing them based on people that are ready sooner and people who need more time, like you said, putting them on a drip campaign. So having that conversation on the phone with a listing potential client is figuring out where they are in the process. Because if they're like, oh, we're thinking about moving a year from now, you're not going to give them so much information that it's just going to kind of breeze right through their mind because they're not really in it right now. But somebody who's like, yeah, we need to sell, we need to be in this other state for this new job like next month, they're going to be wanting all of the info right up front. So you can kind of go through the process a little bit faster. So the questionnaire, this is something that you can actually utilize or you can do kind of off the cuff. You can put together a formal document or a form they fill out and send it to them via email, or you can just have a conversation on the phone with them and you can be jotting down what they're saying. But having a few standard questions that you go over lets you better understand where these people are coming from. So number one, of course, is the timeline, what their motivation is for selling, why now, what have they perceived about the market, do they have any, you know, immediate questions or concerns, what about their house needs to be improved or prepped in order to sell in their mind before you've even seen the house, questions like that. Where are they going? Do they have plans for their next house? Is it local? Do you need to help them purchase one as well? If not, if they're moving out of area, it's a great opportunity to also let them know that we have Keller Williams agents all around the world. And so you can make a recommendation and connect them with an agent in the location where they're planning to move to. And guess what you get? You get a referral agreement, or you get a referral fee as a result by connecting them with another KW agent. Once you've had that kind of conversation, then, and you feel like you've established trust with them and they're interested in taking the next step, then you're going to actually set the listing appointment. So this is normally what we would do in person, non-COVID times, But because of COVID, we are not allowed to do in-person listing presentations. So you're actually going to do it virtually. And so you can do it during that same initial conversation, or you can say, let's set up a time to walk through the actual presentation. I'd love for you to be in front of a computer so that we can do that. And also we'll do maybe a FaceTime call if they have the means or the technology to do it, so that you can walk me through your house and I can kind of see what your house looks like before we finalize everything and start to get it ready for market. Once you've set that listing appointment and you have it on the books, then you can send them the pre-listing packet. And the pre-listing packet is kind of some brief information we're going to go over next. But scheduling the appointment is the biggest challenge. That's like once you have that appointment booked, you are stoked. You're so happy, especially your first one. It's like, you know, the golden ticket of getting a listing. So if you can get that appointment booked, it's just the best feeling ever. And as a new agent, you can do it solo, or if you have a mentor, you know, definitely involve your mentor and they'll participate and walk you through it. And even maybe, you know, you guys can kind of take turns during listing presentation. Or if you don't have a mentor assigned to you and you just want somebody seasoned in the office that's been through this before, reach out, talk to Laura, talk to Rob, talk to any of the team leaders and ask, hey, is there somebody that you think might want to give me a hand with this? Because there's no shame in participating with a team member, your colleague. Your clients don't know the difference. You just say, oh, this is my colleague. This is my teammate with Keller Williams. They're going to be an extra set of eyes for the walkthrough of your house, and we're going to brainstorm together. I mean, two heads are better than one, right? So if you're feeling like you want a little bit of support, definitely reach out and somebody would be happy to do that for you. All right. So before the actual listing appointment, and again, a lot of these materials were created before COVID, so the verbiage is sort of expecting you to be doing this in person, but because we're doing everything virtually, it kind of shifts. So it's really important to understand before the actual presentation and even during the presentation what your seller's needs are. The more you understand about your seller and their needs and their why, the more successful you'll be at meeting those needs and the happier and more satisfied they'll be, which is exactly what we want. We want it to be a win-win. So before you meet with them or before you see the house and do the listing presentation, it's a lot of listening. It's a lot of asking questions. And sometimes, I don't know, you guys have probably seen these memes and jokes online, but we as real estate agents are often referred to as counselors because we do so much listening. And there's a lot of frustration with why people are moving. And if you've ever moved yourself, you know there's a lot of stress with the process of moving. So we end up being kind of an extra ear and a shoulder to cry on. So a lot of listening, but if you're paying attention to what they're saying and you can respond back with answers that match or meet those needs, then again, your clients are going to be so satisfied. So pre-listing goals. Now there's the pre-listing packet, and have any of you been on, I'm hoping all of you guys have been on Command and checked out the materials and designs that are there and free? Hoping?
I have not.
Okay. If you don't have a pre-listing packet or you do not have a listing presentation, which most people don't if they've never had a listing appointment, and even people who have had listing appointments, seasoned agents, they also don't necessarily have these documents. They are available for free on Command. I have an example I'll show you when we're through with the presentation. And if you haven't logged into Command, I encourage you to do it. All of it's there. It's customizable. You can put your photo, you can put your info, but you don't have to change much. It's already populated and it's a really great presentation. So we'll go over that a little bit towards the end. But having the content ahead of time and being able to provide it, especially to some of your more analytical clients, people who want answers, want data, want proof, want something tangible to look at, it's a really great tool to say, I'm an expert, I'm experienced, I'm going to pre-answer some of the most typical questions, And then they're not pestering you or peppering you with a million questions during the actual presentation. They can kind of let that information settle over time. And the things that aren't clear to them or that they really have burning questions about, you can address when you're doing the presentation itself. But by sending them some material ahead of time, it gives them a chance to digest it all. So it's not a necessary piece, but it is recommended. And I would say also, it depends on who your client is, what their personality type is, how you know them. Everyone responds to information a little bit differently. And that's, again, where asking questions and kind of understanding your seller is really important, because then you're able to figure out what pieces of content and information they would or would not appreciate. I've got clients who are just like, tell me where to sign. I trust you. I don't really care. I just want to sell my house, or I just want to buy this house. Just tell me where to sign. And then I have other clients who need to talk 10 times a day and want me to send a ton of information. And then they'll ask questions, I'll answer them, and then they'll ask the questions again. So you kind of gauge personality type, how your clients are and where they fall on that spectrum. And then you can sort of cater the materials based on what it is they're looking for. Some people don't need a pre-listing packet. Some people will really appreciate it. But by having it created ahead of time, it makes your job that much easier. So once you've, again, kind of pre-qualified these folks, you're stating your value. You're just letting them know, I'm so-and-so realtor. Here's my experience. Here's my expertise. Here are the things that I'm good at. If you have had previous experience with clients or folks that you've done transactions with, getting testimonials, that's a great way to sort of brag about yourself without bragging about yourself directly. And you want to, again, build confidence with these people ahead of time and let them know that you are someone to take seriously. Who knows the percentage of how many people get interviewed for a listing appointment? How many agents actually are usually interviewed by clients before they decide to list their house? Anyone know the numbers? So typically 75% of the time, people will just go with the very first agent they meet with. So that's great for us. If we do a good job, 75% of the time, if we're the first person, they'll pick us. Other times, 25% of the time, they're going to interview 2 or more people. So you never know who you're up against competition-wise, but you still want to knock it out of the park at the beginning. So you want to make sure that you're establishing out of the gates that you're a professional, and that's where the pre-listing packet comes into play. All right, so this is normally where we would do an activity, and we'd kind of go through the listing packet. You guys might have this in your materials as one of the pieces of the toolkit. If you do, great. If you don't, we're not breaking out into groups. I think we've talked enough about the pre-listing packet, but it's not super detailed. It's short. Mine, 1 page. That's all I use. It's a 1 page that I send to my clients via email, and I say, hey, these are the things that are going to happen and that we're going to talk about, and we're going to address these things. So they know that their questions are going to be met during the presentation, and they know that I've considered all of the usual questions and factors that go into selling a house. I like to keep it simple myself, but you can add more pages or you can make it as detailed as you like. I wouldn't make it as large or as robust as the actual presentation. You don't want to give away the secret sauce before you've even had a chance to meet with them. So I would say kind of give them enough info where they feel like, okay, this person really knows what they're talking about. I'm excited to learn more. They've brought up some topics I didn't even consider. I can't wait to hear what the answers are. It's like a teaser. And then the presentation itself is where you're really going into the details and answering those questions, but you've got them either in person or virtually. And so you've secured that appointment. But if you give it all away at the beginning and you don't have that appointment officially booked or held, then they might just take that information and interview somebody else altogether. Any questions so far?
I have a question, Aubrey.
Yeah.
How do you usually deliver that that sheet, the pre-package presentation? Do you email it or you drop it off physically?
I usually email it. So it's just a simple 1-page PDF. So after I've had the initial conversation with the person who's considering selling, and I've done the questions and I've ascertained their motivation and what it is they're looking for in an agent and in the process of selling their house. And I've got the appointment either booked or, we've even already met in person one time before. I will send this one page to them and just say, hey, these are the things that we're going to go through. These are the things I'm going to guide you through. So they're like, oh, I didn't realize there was all this stuff that you need to do in preparation for selling a house. So it's establishing, for me, this is my personal approach. For me, it's establishing my value proposition, because I'm saying, look at all of these hoops we're about to jump through. Aren't you so glad you have somebody to guide you through it? And also it brings up topics that they may not have considered. And also it kind of highlights things that they know that they're going to get answers to. So I usually send that to them via email.
That's great. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, so now the actual listing presentation, and I will show you a sample of this. It's directly from KW website, the template, so we'll go over that in a bit, but you can kind of, you'll get to see a teaser of it next. But the listing presentation itself is what you give them or show them or guide them through when you're meeting with them in person. And again, in person could be virtually. So if you're meeting with them in person and you're old school before COVID, going to their house, you've pre-printed this. So it's like a packet, a PDF that you're gonna kind of like a school teacher, you're gonna walk them through it. You're gonna flip the page, you're gonna highlight the things, and then that's material you get to leave with them. If you're doing it virtually, then you can do something similar to what we're doing right now, which is it's a PowerPoint presentation. You can pull up Zoom, or if you don't want to do Zoom, or if your clients aren't super tech savvy, you can just send them the PDF and say, okay, we're going to review this over the phone, or, it'd be great again to do a FaceTime type of phone call so you can actually do the walkthrough of their house. But you're going to walk through this presentation over the phone basically. And so they can have it on their desktop, their computer, or if they have a printer at home, maybe they've pre-printed it. Or to your question, you can send this to them via mail or drop it off, just like leave it for them on their doorstep prior to your scheduled appointment. So if you want to go to the office and print it in color for them, make it easier and just leave it for them in an envelope on their doorstep so that you're not actually breaking any of the COVID rules by going in, then they have it to refer to during your call. Okay, so the listing presentation. The first thing, we dive right into our client's needs. So we've already had some of these conversations prior to setting up the appointment. You're either reiterating that, bringing it up again, or digging deeper at this point. So you're really making it all about them. And who doesn't love to make something all about themselves? Our clients are going to love to answer questions about their house and about themselves and about their motivation. So we're starting with their needs first. And it also sort of establishes that they're the highlight of the show, not you, they are. You're there to help facilitate their needs. So presenting the listing presentation, you can include as many pages as you'd like. You can make it really long. You can make it super short. The one that I'm going to show you is 28 pages. You don't have to do all 28. You can pick and choose which ones you like. We all have short attention spans. In fact, you guys are probably struggling just even right now during this training to stay focused, right? So I would say err on the side of brevity. Try to go a little shorter if you can. Condense maybe some of the materials, but do be sure to hit the highlights and the high points. And you know what? It's an evolving document. So if you have a presentation and you do it a couple times and you realize, you know what, I want to tweak this, you go right back into KW Command, into designs, make the adjustments you want, print out the new one. And so it's a fluid document that you can make edits to as your business evolves, as you get more comfortable with the presentation, as you realize that there's some questions that get asked more than others. It doesn't have to be you create it one time and you always use that same thing. It's something that is going to enhance how you interact with your clients, not be a stumbling block for you. Seller objections. Let's talk about seller objections. Who here is petrified of a seller objecting or a client objecting in general? Anyone? Yeah, it's scary. Nobody wants to be put on the spot and questioned or to have to come up with an answer to somebody's fear or concern or objection. And that's exactly what an objection is it's a fear. So by understanding your seller's needs and motivation, when they're objecting, it's not because they don't like you, it's because they're afraid of something. So sometimes the best way to overcome an objection is to ask more questions. So who here wants to volunteer an idea of what an objection could look like? So Mr. and Mrs. Seller, thanks so much for showing me your house today. We're getting ready to list it. I'm going to leave this listing agreement with you to sign, and we'll be able to go live on the market based on your timeline. And the Mr. and Mrs. Seller says, well, I don't know, we need more time to think about it. That's an objection. Or we're talking about price maybe, and we're establishing how much we think the house should get listed for, and saying, I really think it should be this amount because, you know, my neighbor down the street sold their house in 2017 for $2 million. That's an objection. Who here has an objection or an idea that's just so scary to them? Anyone want to volunteer?
I would say for me, is we have a lot of educated and knowledgeable or analytics people around here in the Bay Area, and if I'm across one of them and they're just asking very technical questions as maybe data, that's my fear, for them to answer or to ask me a question that I'm not sure how to answer it. Okay,
so a question like exactly how many houses have sold in this neighborhood during this time frame, and you don't know that answer off the top of your head, like a question like that?
Yeah, maybe kind of like, how's the market doing? And then I will probably have an answer for that. But then they'll say like, oh, I was reading this news, or they're on top of everything. I read this, and then I'm like, I don't know what he's talking about. Then he'll throw me off right there, and that's my biggest fear for me at this point.
Yep, that makes perfect sense. There are a lot of educated people, news is everywhere. And one thing I think we can all agree on is that with so much news, everyone has a slightly different angle. So depending on what news source you're listening to or reading, you're going to get a different answer. So I would turn it right back around to that seller and ask him a question. So, it sounds like you stay current with the news. Are you concerned about what you're reading? Do you think that that's going to have an impact on the sale of your home? You didn't actually answer his question. You turned it right back around to that person and said, what is it about this that concerns you? It sounds like you have a concern regarding the news that you're reading or the stats that you've heard. How does that impact you? What are your concerns and thoughts? And so you can kind of redirect them without having to have the answer. And if they're asking for a very specific answer and they want to know that answer and you don't have it, then you say, that's a really great question. I have a ton of resources and data that I can go look at and put together a more formal answer for you so you have exactly the right numbers that you're looking for. In the meantime, tell me a little bit more about this news report that you read. You said that the market is shifting. Does that concern you, or does that change your mind about wanting to move now? What about moving now is important to you? So it's you're addressing what they've said. You're making a note of it to get them detailed information if they're a super analytical person, but you're turning it back around on them. And then you can ask them again, what's their motivation for moving? And if they say, well, I really feel like now is the best time to sell. The market is hot. We're going to get top dollar for our house. We've been waiting for this opportunity, and we really want to get out of California. If they're giving you that answer, then they've answered it for themselves. Regardless of what the news is saying, they're just expressing a fear. And so you can say, it sounds like you are committed and ready to make this move now. Yes, the news reports have said this. There's a lot of news sources out there. Everyone's sharing a little bit different information. I'll do a little bit of research and get you the proper data that you're looking for, but it sounds like you're really committed to making the move now. So let's go ahead and sign that listing agreement. Does that help at all?
Yeah, a lot. Thank you. That was great.
Okay, so the listing appointment. This is the fun stuff. Walking through the home is one of my favorite things, and it's such a bummer that we can't really do that now in person. But you can do it virtually with FaceTime. And once you've secured the listing, once you've actually had them sign the listing agreement, you're going to have to go to that home in person to help facilitate some of the transactional pieces, like meeting with home inspections, doing your actual agent walkthrough for your visual inspection. So you will get to see the house in person. They're just saying that we're not allowed to do these home visits for the listing appointments. We just have to do them virtually. But the home walkthrough, normally you'd have your clients sit down in like the kitchen area at the table, and you'd kind of have that personal conversation where you can go over the presentation paperwork, and it just feels a little bit less on the spot. You know, you're sitting around the kitchen table, maybe they've offered you a cup of tea or coffee or something to that effect, and it just creates sort of camaraderie and it bonds you. It also gives you an opportunity to leave them with some paperwork to review while you go and walk through the house. Again, this is pre-COVID. I like to say, you know what, if you don't mind, I'm going to take a quick tour of your house, and I'd love to see your house through the eyes of a buyer, because after all, that's who we're trying to reach. So I'm going to just take some notes, walk through the house. You can review this paperwork here, and then we'll chat some more. Sometimes they'll want to give you the tour themselves. That's okay too. I find that it takes longer. It actually slows the whole process down. So if you can do it without them walking you through it, that would be my recommendation. But, you know, always lean on your clients and what it is that feels most comfortable for them. You do want to ask them, of course, what they like most about their house, and also where they find some challenges. So they might say, you know, oh, we put in these exquisite windows or special faucets or this, you know, unique flooring, and they're super proud of it. So that's something you want to highlight. But they also might tell you some things like, oh, in the winter, you know, we get some pooling of water in the backyard, or you know, whatever negative thing, you know, the garbage trucks come on such and such date and they're loud, you know, whatever it might be. They're going to tell you what the challenges are and also the things that they like best about their house. This whole time you should be taking notes. Now, virtually, again, a FaceTime or some other, you know, video chat type service is ideal, because they are going to have to walk you through the house. They're going to have to carry their phone or computer or iPad, whatever it might be, and kind of show you around. And it's okay if you don't see it in full detail. That's not when you're going to do your agent visual inspection, but you want to get a sense of the house so that you can start wrapping your head around what you need to do to prepare the listing. And also, it's pride of ownership. Your sellers are proud of their houses, they love them, and they want to show it off and show you around, or maybe get your input. A lot of times they want advice. So they might point out something in the house that's a concern, or an area that they're not sure about, or, oh, is this going to be a big deal for buyers? And you can let them show you and give them advice on the spot if you feel confident, or you can say, you know what, let me do a little research and get back to you on that one. It shouldn't be a big deal, but let me just be sure. I'm going to talk with maybe some other agents in my office, or, you know, let me get back to you on that if you don't know for sure. All right, so after you've done the presentation and you've done the walkthrough, whether it's virtual or in person, what's the most important thing? Close the deal. You want to get that listing agreement signed. If you haven't looked at a listing agreement before, I encourage you to go into CAR and pull up a CAR form listing agreement, a sample of it, and just familiarize yourself with it, especially before you have an appointment with a potential seller, because you want to know what that document says and what's going to be expected of them before you're asking them to sign it. So really, you know, review it. Mike Sevilla, our broker, does trainings every so often on contracts, so RPA and also listing agreements. I definitely encourage you to participate in those. He actually walks through it basically line by line. So if you've never filled out a listing agreement before, it's really great to hear him talk about it and point out the really important things and things to look out for, and just explaining what different fields and forms mean. Also, if you have a mentor, talk to your mentor. They'll help you fill out your first one, or again, somebody seasoned in the office would be happy, I'm sure, to help you or answer questions on areas that you get stuck on. but it's really important to understand that document because it's a legally binding contract that you are asking your clients to sign, and you're expecting them to know what it is they're signing, so you need to know it. Not to give you guys too much pressure. I know we're talking about the fun stuff of listings and getting the appointment and the listing presentation, but the contract is a very big part of it. So just word to the wise on that one. Okay, so now the big challenge. You've proven your worth, you've established your value proposition, you've gone over your clients' needs and wants and their motivation. You've looked at the house, you've talked about how you're going to market the house, how you're going to bring them buyers, how you're going to guide them through the process. You've established your value as an agent. Now you go in for the kill. And so you ask them to sign the listing agreement. And this is the part that I think can be very paralyzing to people as agents. But for our clients, it's sort of like oh, of course, of course there's going to be something I need to sign. And it's all about how you present it. For me, I say, that the platform that we talked about, the MLS, the multiple listing system, in order to get your house on the market and enter it into the MLS, we have to have a signed agreement. So what I can do is I can start pre-marketing your house as a coming soon property and start reaching out to my network of agents so that we already have a buzz going before you're even ready to put the house on the market. In order to do that, I just need you to sign this agreement. They require that in order for us to upload it to the MLS. So if you'd like, I'll leave this here with you now, and you can sign it while we're sitting here and we can walk through it together, or I can come back and pick it up for you if it's an in-person meeting. Since everything now is virtual, then you say, here's the listing agreement. Go ahead and review it. We can talk through it over the phone, and then I'm going to send it to you for a digital signature. If you have any questions when you're signing it, just let me know. So you're not asking them, you're telling them. You're saying, okay, here's the listing agreement. In order to get your house on the market, this needs to be filled out. Here you go. Questions? That's like the big one right there. All right, you guys are following along then. So if you have any apprehensions about that, again, talk to a mentor, talk to somebody who's seasoned in the office. But I would just approach it almost casually, like, okay, great, we went through all this, we're gonna work together, so I just need you to sign this agreement. You get to pick how long our agreement lasts for. Typically it's about 6 months. We're gonna have your house sold sooner than that, but just in case, it takes us a little longer to go on the market because there might be prep work for the house, or it takes a little bit longer to sell because the market shifts. A 6-month window is a really great time to sell the house. And so there will be an expiration for the agreement. The other thing I say too, and this is in case you get an objection, is look, I want you to be totally satisfied and happy working with me. I'm going to do everything I can to sell your house for top dollar, get you everything you're looking for. But if for some reason you feel like this isn't a good fit, I get it. You want to be happy with who you're working with. You want to enjoy the person that's guiding you through this process. And if you don't feel that I'm the right fit, then we can terminate the agreement. This is not something that I'm going to, it's not set in stone. But if we go down that path and we start working on selling your house and I bring you a buyer, that's what this agreement's here for. So usually I don't bring that up unless there's an objection. I just assume the sale basically. And I say, okay, so in order to get your house on the market, you just got to fill out this paperwork. Here you go, and send it to them. Okay, so next we're going to talk about kind of recaps and ahas. There's some standard slides here to go through. It's just a reminder for you guys doing Ignite about your daily success habits. So assuming you guys are doing these things every day, adding contacts, having conversations, handwritten notes, etc., practicing your scripts, that's huge. And if you haven't done Bold, I would say definitely do Bold. Bold is really great for scripts as well. And there's also script practice for free with our office every Friday. Okay, so I'm gonna get out of here because you guys have seen these slides before, I think, and I'm gonna show you the listing presentation. All right. No questions in the chat. Man, you guys are easy. Okay. Can you guys see the listing presentation? It's a PDF.
Yes.
Okay. So this is the KW provided for free, completely customizable and editable listing presentation. So if you don't have one, or if you have one and you're not sure if it's enough or you want to supplement it or just get great ideas, this is the one to go to. And again, you can change all of this in KW Command Designs. So there's a listing presentation template. These are like the boilerplate pages for us as agents. So these instructions are for us, not for your clients. So this says, you know, the listing presentation template is designed for you to customize, and it kind of walks you through how to do that. So a custom consultation exclusively prepared for, and this is where you can put in your clients' names. If you have a snapshot of their house, great. Otherwise, you can have a generic photo. This is where your information goes, where your logo goes. I mean, it's really self-explanatory. But how great is this? There's so much information and detail already provided. So you can customize it with the address of the house that you're hoping to sell, all of the specific details, some bullet points. Here's a trick, guys. If you aren't sure about the details of the house you're going to list, go into the MLS and see when the last time it was sold and see if there's any details about the house that you can get information from there. So if you haven't had a full conversation with the seller yet, but you want to learn a little bit about the house, the MLS, if it's sold, you know, within the last 10 years or so, the details will be there. So you can at least get an idea of, oh, when you bought it, it had hardwood floors. You know, do you still have the hardwood floors? How are the condition of the floors? That type of thing. And you can kind of fill in this listing presentation with some of that information. This is great. This is the neighborhood snapshot. If you haven't heard about this already, this is another feature of KW Command. You can do a neighborhood snapshot, so you can get really nuanced in the neighborhood around the house, and you can put in details about what the average sales price is, how long it's on the market for. This is going to be a great starting point for that pricing discussion. Comparable properties, you can actually do a CMA. So if you haven't done a CMA already yourself, again, mentor, seasoned agent, they can walk you through it. But by putting together some of the comparable properties, you're starting to establish what that pricing should be for your clients. And that's going to be a tricky conversation depending on what they have in their mind of what their house should sell for. But this is data. This is impartial. This is not your opinion. You're just saying, hey, look, this is what buyers in your immediate neighborhood are willing to pay for a house that's similar to yours. They're the ones that are determining the price, not me. Your needs, this is that whole wants, needs, motivation section. The actual process. This is something that you might include, like I was saying, as a one-pager that you send prior to your actual listing presentation. So you're not going into detail on any of these things. What you're saying is, hey, these are all of the steps that you're going to encounter when you're selling your house. And it's not meant to intimidate them, but it is meant to open their eyes and say, oh, wow, I really do need an agent. And I want an agent who understands all of these things. I can't wait to learn more about what they have to say. You can talk about your app. Everyone in KW gets the free consumer app where people can search for properties, or you can leave these pages out. Just know that you can customize, delete. You can only use 3 pages. You can use all of them. It's up to you. Marketing plan. This is a big one. Everyone wants to know how they're going to market their house. How people find buyers. So this is great. The data has already been set. You don't have to go researching it. It's already here. And KW stays right on top of this. So this is accurate. This is based on the National Association of Realtors profile of home buyers and sellers from 2018. So this is what you want to share with your clients. Where do people find properties? Look at that big chunk. It's the internet. Promotional materials, if you use any. Right now, we're not allowed to do any paper promotions. So you might leave this out of your presentation for now. But when we go back, hopefully, to how it was before, you might talk about flyers and other things that you do to help promote their house, any media planning that you offer, how you promote it. I mean, and these are great ideas for you just to prepare for like the steps you need to take to actually sell a house too. So if you've never been through selling a house or an actual listing before, this is a cheat sheet for us as agents. Like, oh, that's right, I need to do this. Oh, that's right, I need to do that. So not only is it helpful for your clients, it's helpful for us. Open house strategy, again, if we are virtually doing them versus in person, it's going to be a little different. So you might need to tweak this page if you want to do a virtual open house. Other details, you know, a little bio sheet about you. Again, testimonials if you have them. If you've been a seasoned agent and you have some numbers to go off of, great. Otherwise, you can just include, again, some stats that are from the local market. So it could be Silicon Valley wide, it could be San Jose specific, it could be Milpitas specific, it could be wherever you're located, or it could just be very specific to that neighborhood. And then these are credentials and awards of KW. So I think at this point, a lot of people have heard about Keller Williams, but not everybody has. And so it's kind of nice to include that just so they know how fabulous our company is. And then a portfolio, if you've had any previous listings, you know, the more seasoned you get, the better. And then this is sort of like your little love letter to them. You know, here's my promise. You can talk about your personal mission or value statements, or just KW's mission and value. And then this is the closing page. Okay, that was everything.
Where did you find the template?
I will show you. Let's see here. Give me just a sec. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
All right, so this is KW Command. If you haven't logged in, start playing with it. It's a great tool. You've got a CRM, you've got resources for these materials. So in KW Command, over on the left-hand side, you see this little menu with all these icons. I'm in Designs. So this is Designs right here. These are all of the templates that are available or that I've created before. So at the top, you can see the different types of templates that are available for free through KW Command. So there's email templates, landing pages, social media, and this listing presentation is a print one. So I've selected print, and I'm going to click the little plus button. I've got print highlighted here, and I'm going to click next, and it's going to take me to the design center for this template, and this is where you can customize it. So here you go. You see for print materials, there are listings, there are print materials for buyers, lead generation, business basics, leaderships, etc., postcards, flyers, all kinds of stuff. So under listings, you'll see that there's a listing presentation template. There's a modern version, and then there's also a classic version. So you can use either one of these. And if you use it, it will provide opportunity for you to edit it directly here in the site. And then when you're finished with your design, you can download it, and it saves it automatically to your Command dashboard. So you don't have to go tracking down some website every time you want to make edits to it. It's directly in Command for you. So you'll see all of the pre-populated pages that I just showed you, and you just edit it directly in here. So if you want to swap this out, you can. And I mean, you can spend hours going over this stuff, so we're not going to go into too much detail on this specifically. But I would say go to any one of the videos, the pre-recorded videos, go to YouTube, Scott Leroy, in-house trainings that we do through the offices. I mean, this is such a great tool for you, or just go play around with it yourself. But yeah, that's where I got it from. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, we're right on time. Wow, it's 9:59. Any last minute questions, thoughts, feedback? You guys excited to get some listings? Awesome. Well, if you do have questions or you want to reach out, I'm available. I don't know if my contact information was included in this training, but I'll type it in here. There's my email. I'm also on the Facebook groups for our offices, etc. So feel free to reach out. But otherwise, thank you guys all for your attention. And I know this is a lot of information coming at you. So go play around with the tools. And when you're ready to get your listing appointment, good luck.
Thank you.
Okay. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.